Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Above the Rim Rundown, where we run down all things NBA. I am one of your hosts, Memo, and right beside me, I've got Hoops. How you doing?
What's going on, man? Overall, I've been doing good. I will say, just get through in life. It's always good when it's on a Friday night and it's about to be a weekend because means we got through a long week. And also excited because it's about to be the start of the playoffs tomorrow, including our Lakers game one against the Timberwolves, which we do plan on catching that game together, so that's gonna be fun for sure. And man, honestly, can't wait. How have you been, man?
I've been good, as I believe I mentioned last week. This is my spring break, so I got to relax. Unlike you, I had a very light week, easy week. Got to sleep, got to watch a lot of basketball. Unfortunately, I think I watched all the bad games instead of the good ones, which is horrible
Yeah.
luck. Uh, I played Fortnite. I got to relax. I bought some records. It was a good week for me. But as you just mentioned, there's a lot of basketball going on right now. We've been watching the games. We're excited for the playoffs, and that's what we're gonna be talking about today. We're gonna be going over the play-in games that literally like just finished. Uh, like less than an hour ago, I believe, was the final play-in game. So we're gonna recap all of the play-in games and then go over our predictions for this first round of the NBA playoffs. So I guess we shouldn't waste any more time, and we'll start with the first play-in game that we're gonna go over, which is the Warriors versus Grizzlies. I'm sorry about my dog barking. I'm sure that's very annoying, but I'll have you who start things off. Uh, this was such a good game that I unfortunately missed. I was only able to catch the final minute of it, and I was locked in that minute. Like, I was very invested. It was a good minute of basketball. But yeah, I'll have you go over the game.
Yeah, so to say the least, this game had a lot of momentum shifts and changes for sure. So early on, Grizzlies started the game strong and they went up by as much as 9 early in the first quarter. But then in the second quarter, it was the Warriors who completely took over and they went up by as much as 20. And so then came the third quarter. That's when the Grizzlies go on a nice run, and they were even able to storm back from down 20 and eventually briefly take the lead in the fourth. But unfortunately, the Warriors just came to be too dominant at the end. And it was in large part due to performances by um, play in Jimmy, 38 points on 60% shooting, um, and 12 out of 20 overall. And of course, also Steph, 37 points, including 6 for 13 from 3-point range. Those guys were huge. For the Grizzlies, it was really the Desmond Bain breakout game. 30 points on including 5 for 8 from 3-point range, 11 for 21 overall. Mighty impressive there. To say at least, he tried to carry the team on his back. Ja put up 22. Jaren Jackson Jr. put up 18. We'll say though at the end, or really the game overall, refs definitely made some questionable calls, and I think that there were some that definitely went against the Warriors for sure. Um, like for example, when towards the end of the game, when Kevin Looney got called for a foul, it didn't really look like he did much, but yet Zach Edey got sent to the line, I believe, and then pretty much free points for Grizzlies there. That being said, despite having questionable calls lead to free throws, the Grizzlies did not necessarily make the most out of the opportunity because there were some, like Scottie Pippen Jr. had a very big missed free throw, which came up super crucial because at the end, when the Grizzlies were down by only one, they were just that was a huge difference. If he would have made that, it could have been like a totally different game. And so then at the end, even bigger mistake was when the Grizzlies were not able to get the inbound pass in, and that led to them 5 second violation and had no choice but to foul Steph. And at that point, the game was unfortunately just over. You know that Steph is not gonna miss. He's definitely not gonna miss two free throws. You'll be lucky if he misses one. But he did not miss either of them. Knocks down both free throws. Warriors win the game and they clinch the 7th seed to set themselves for the first round matchup with the Rockets. So to say the least, that matchup was one of the better play-in tournament games for sure.
Oh
Um,
yeah, it was definitely
but yeah,
close
I
to the
think I
wire.
will definitely. But I think I pretty much made like a pretty good overview on my thoughts on this game. Anything you would like to add on, Memo?
I will say, as you mentioned, both Jimmy Butler and Steph had great games. I feel like Jimmy Butler really did great in like the first half. That is where he really shined. He had a cool play where he hit this tough layup. It was an and one. It was great to see him proving me wrong. I've been kind of like the Jimmy hater, the Jimmy doubter. Not saying that, not believing in his playoff abilities, but so far in the play-in, he came through. He came through at least in the first half. Uh, in the second half, that's where Steph was, um, you know, leading the team. He didn't have the best game for like the first half, but it was like the final quarter where he's scoring all the clutch buckets. He hit like two pump fakes on Scottie Pippen Jr. before hitting a clutch three to extend the lead. And as you mentioned as well, it was a close game, and the refs, tried to give it to the Grizzlies at points towards the end. You mentioned the Looney foul. I believe Pods shouldn't have been called for a foul when he blocked Scottie Pippen Jr. He hit the arm before not the arm. He hit the ball with his hand before hitting Scottie's arm. So I don't think that is considered a foul. But as you mentioned, Scottie should have made those free throws. It would have helped a lot. Would have tied the game essentially later on. And then, yeah, as we mentioned, what's his name? Santi Aldama couldn't inbound the ball in time. And that was unfortunate. The broadcasters, I believe it was the broadcaster, I forgot who said it, but someone was saying that if it was Taylor Jenkins, he probably would have made a play that wouldn't have took so long to develop, so that they wouldn't have been called for those 5 seconds. So some heat there for the new coach for the Grizzlies. He bounced back in the next game that we're gonna talk about, but yeah, that was a horrible turnover. They didn't even get a chance to save their, I guess, seventh seed hopes. So yeah, now we've got the Warriors facing the Rockets, and I'm excited to talk about that. But we're sticking with the playing games. If that's fine with you, could probably move on to the Kings and Mavericks, right? Which was not the
No,
best game.
it was not a great game whatsoever. So let me start with the overview. So pretty much to say least overview of this game is it was the AD show. AD absolutely cooked. 27 points, 9 rebounds. Um and up until this point, 4-0 record in the play-in. And not just that, postseason Clay, if you want to call it, he redeemed himself from that 0 for 10 performance against the Kings in the play-in last year when he was with the Warriors. And play the revenge game if you want, because man, was it. And also for the Mavs, stepping up big was Brandon Williams. He was just absolutely cooking. 17 points on 3 for 4 from three-point range. PJ Washington also added 17 points. And for the Kings, the big three did their best. DeMar put up 33 points, Zach put up 20, Sabonis put up 11. At the end, this game was just super one-sided. After just a brief 3-point lead in the first and second quarters for the Kings, the Mavs just took total control from there. And the Mavs were able to go up by as much as 26, and they just never looked back. And so this ended up being an easy win for the Mavs, and they were able to advance to play the Grizzlies for the eighth seed, which we will talk about soon.
Yeah, but this game wasn't crazy. It was basically a blowout the entire time. But yeah,
Snooze fest.
it was. But shout out to AD for doing very well. Kind of doubting or proving the doubters wrong. You know, a lot of Mavs fans are upset about the trade as they should. But you know, he's proving that he can ball. You know, Lakers fans have been saying this for a while, and he proved it on both sides of the floor. You know, 27 points. He was impressive defensively, and he was. He also proved that Sabonis doesn't own him. This was a narrative they were kind of pushing in the broadcast, talking about how Sabonis usually beats Anthony Davis. I know there was that like super long streak that Sabonis had against AD. That streak was broken earlier this year, but you know they kept bringing that up as if it meant anything. But uh, you know, AD actually showed up while Sabonis had 11 points. So I'll end
Yeah.
that
And it's like,
conversation there.
right. And it's like, don't look now. After Sabonis had that long streak against AD, now AD has a streak against Sabonis. So I guess to say the least, the narratives have been shifting.
And speaking of narrative shifting, again, I gotta call a spade a spade. Klay Thompson came through. You know, I'm the biggest Klay Thompson hater. I love to see him getting that 0 out of 10 game last year. Um, and I felt like the broadcasters were haters as well because they kept bringing that up, and they every time because Klay missed his first two shots, so every time he missed, the broadcaster was like, 11-0 since the last play-in game, 12-0, like 12 misses in a row. They kept bringing it up, and then Clay made his first shot, and then it seemed like he wouldn't stop missing, or not missing, wouldn't stop making shots in the second quarter, and ended up really having a great game. So shout out to Clay for bouncing back against the Kings, who basically ended his Warriors run last year. So yeah, both AD and Klay Thompson were able to prove the haters wrong. Oh, and also I'm glad you mentioned Brandon Williams, who at one point was a two-way player for the Mavs. He was, if he was eligible, he would have been the G League scoring champ this season. Incredible scorer, and they really needed him because the Mavs are really lacking in the guard position with, of course, Kyrie being out. I believe Spencer Dinwiddie is out as well. And their starting lineup was atrocious, especially in the guard position. They had Najee Marshall, Klay Thompson, PJ Washington, AD, and Derek Lively. So no notable ball handlers, but Brandon Williams was able to come through for them, especially in this game with those 17 points. So shout out to him. Unfortunately for the Mavs, their run ended against the Grizzlies. Tonight, it just ended. I just finished watching this game, which was unfortunate because this was a blowout again, but this time for the Mavs, and it was basically from beginning to end, the Grizzlies were in charge. Hoops, would you like to go over this game?
Yeah, so unfortunately, this was none other than another snooze fest playing game. It just so happened that the Mavs were this time on the losing end. So, to pretty much summarize what happened, the Grizzlies were just dominant from start to finish. They never trailed in this game and they were up by as much as 25. AD put the Mavs on his back and tried to do his very best to carry the team, putting up 40 points on 55% shooting on 16 to 29. Clay had another good game with 18 points, and so did Brandon Williams, who showed out with 16 points. Najee Marshall added up 13 points. Unfortunately, though, the Grizzlies just had too much well, well-balanced scoring of their own, and it was even better. Um, Jaren Jackson Jr. put up 24 points. John Morant put up 22. Desmond Bane also put up 22. Zach Edey put up 15. Scottie Pippen Jr. put up 13. And Santi Aldama put up 11. And it was a pretty easy win for the Grizzlies, to say the least. And they were able to clinch the eighth seed, setting up their first round matchup against Oklahoma City Thunder. So, good job by the Grizzlies for stepping up big when they needed to. They have honestly been looking a lot better lately than they did, like, really the end of the regular season. But I'm afraid it might be just for nothing because they're about to play the Thunder. But we'll talk about that later. Anyways, yeah, unfortunately, this was just another boring game that could have easily just not been watched.
Yeah, unfortunately, I did watch this one. I kind of watched. I was like on TikTok and watching the game at the same time because I was kind of bored with this one. But I will say John Morant had a really good game, especially in the first half. I will say he's, something to look out for is just him being kind of a hothead. I guess there was times where like he thought he was fouled and would get mad at the refs and then immediately do a stupid foul towards the other team. He did that twice in the first half, so he gotta not do that in the playoffs because they were stupid. I think one of them costed free throws. Brandon Williams ended up being on the line because it was like, I don't know, like 10 seconds until halftime, and he decided to do this stupid ass foul. They didn't even like pass the half court line, I believe. So John needs to check it before that OKC series because they're gonna need him in his at his A game. They're gonna need Triple J at his A game and Desmond Bane as well, who has been so good. I mean, it's not just these two playing games. I feel like every playoff season, or every playoffs, Desmond Bane always comes through, and score buckets like crazy with those T-Rex arms of his. So shout out to Bane. He's looking good out there. And yeah, I don't think I have much else to say. Oh, I guess something to keep note is that Ja was able to play well with a sprained ankle. He sprained it during the Warriors game. He injured it in the game, left the game, and then came back. So he was still able to play well, so that's good for him. And again, just shout out to AD, who just tried his best. As you said, he scored 40 points today. And he was doing that while also getting hurt like a ton in this game. There was several times where he had to go to the locker room or hobbling, holding his back. Not a good sign. I'm sure Mavs fans weren't happy to see him hobbling like every play, but he tried his best. He did what he needed to do. He did his job. Unfortunately, they're not going to the playoffs, so not a good look for Nico. But yeah, AD does not deserve any hate. So I hope Mavs fans don't go after him because he did his best. He scored 40 while getting injured like every play. So shout out to AD. And I'm ready to move on to the Eastern Conference if you are.
Yes, sir. Shout out to AD. Glad he was able to ball out. Unfortunate he wasn't able to make the playoffs, but they'll be back next year. But on that note, I think we are good to go to the Eastern Conference play-in now. Starting with the Magic versus the Hawks. So I guess I can start things off on this one. Pretty much, this was another one of those games that ended up in a blowout, unfortunately. I'll say that this game had its moments. First off, Trey tried his best to put the Hawks on his back, putting up 28 points. However, the rest of the team just didn't really show up. Magic, though, on the other hand, had some really nice scoring this game. Anthony Black Cole Anthony 26 points, Wendell Carter Jr. 19, Paulo 17, Anthony Black 16, Franz 13. Um, Now the Magic, they were able to go up by as much as 22 in the second quarter, I believe. But then the Hawks, behind Trey, they were able to get the game to within three late in the third. Unfortunately, this is where things went absolutely downhill for the Hawks. The Magic were able to rebuild their lead and go up by as much as 29 in the fourth, and it ended up being a very easy win for the Magic. And so the Hawks then had one more chance on Friday against the Heat to gain the eighth seed. We'll talk about that later, but nonetheless, Orlando took care of business and they were able to easily clinch the seventh seed, setting up their first round matchup against the Celtics.
Yeah, I don't have much notes for this game. It was a dominant win by the Magic. I guess something to note is that Trey Young got ejected after getting two techs in like 2 seconds. He like darted this pass to a ref. The ref did not like that, so he gave him a tech. And then somehow Trey Young got the ball again and just kind of refused to give the ball back to the ref. He was just so over this game, which like I understand. You know, he was the one that was truly trying to carry this team, and they were just being blown out. So yeah, Trey Young basically rage quit and kind of trolled the refs and left the game. So that sucks, especially since I'm kind of like the Trey Young guy. I've been rooting for him all year, so it sucks that he ended up the game like that, and that the Magic ended up winning. It is what it is, though. The Magic played well. They had a lot of guys contribute, so shout out to them. But I'm honestly ready to move on to Bulls versus Heat, which is another boring blowout. Once again, I think I watched this one. I
Yeah,
actually don't remember, but yeah, this one was boring.
Yeah, unfortunately, another snooze fest playing game, which has been a little bit of a reoccurring theme here ever since the Grizzlies game against the Warriors. Anyhow, yeah, heading into this game, I thought the Bulls were the better team. The Bulls literally beat the Heat exactly 1 week prior. But unfortunately, they just did not show up for this game. Bulls went in very awful 10 for 37 from three, which is a whopping 27% shooting rate. Not the right time to do that. And also, it was practically a legacy game for Tyler Hero, putting up 38 points on a whopping 68.4 shooting rate. That is crazy, including 3 out of 7 from three and 13 out of 19 overall. Adding on, Andrew Wiggins put up 20, Bam put up 15, Davion Mitchell also put up 15 as well on 100% shooting rate, 5 for 5 field goals. And the Heat looked very impressive this game. Went up by as much as 25 and never trailed. And so by beating the Bulls this game, the Heat have now beaten the Bulls in the play-in tournament 3 years in a row, 2 in Miami, and then this year in Chicago. So yeah, the Heat has kind of been owning the Bulls in play-in tournament history in the very young run that it has existed. That being said, by winning this game, the Heat were able to set themselves up for a matchup against the Hawks on Friday, which would be for the eighth seed. So yeah, Heat looked very impressive this game, and the Bulls just for some reason did not show up.
Yeah, the Bulls really struggled from three this game. They really couldn't hit their threes at all, as you mentioned. The 27% shooting rate there. But I think their interior defense was probably the worst part of their game, because they were just letting so many easy baskets to the rim and so many Heat guys would just drive in and get an easy bucket. Like, no wonder Davion Mitchell went 5 for 5. There's a lot of high percentages. No wonder Tyler Hero went off for 38 points. There was basically no interior defense. They tried in the third quarter. The third quarter was better for the Bulls, but there was not enough in them in order to take over. The Miami Heat ended up destroying, and Tyler Hero had another, or yeah, I would say another great game in the postseason. I guess this counts as a postseason, as probably many of you guys remember. Tyler Hero had a great game in his rookie year against the Lakers, I believe it was. He had a 40-point game, something like that, and now he's doing it again. Maybe he's the new playoff Jimmy, playoff hero. We might call him. Who knows? But his success continues on to the next game against the Hawks this time for the 8th seed in order to face the Cavs. And I did not get to watch this one, even though this was a good one. I watched the final minutes of the overtime portion, but in overtime, I only got to watch like the Heat dominate essentially. But yeah, would you like to go over the overview before we truly get into the overtime portion?
Yeah, so unfortunately, I also missed most of this game. I think when I caught it, it was also when practically the game was forced into overtime, but then the Heat just absolutely blew the game open at that point. So yeah, it was one finally a more entertaining game to say the least. So that's good. Anyhow, Heat started off the game really strong and they went up big early. They led by as much as 17 in the second quarter, but the Hawks were able to storm back. They led by 6 in the fourth. Ultimately, the game went into OT thanks to a Trey game tying layup late to force the game to overtime. But that is when, in overtime, the Heat just absolutely dominated and blew the game open. So, in large part, the reason why the Heat were able to get this win, Tyler Hero was another legacy game, 30 points. Andrew Wiggins put up 20. Bam put up 17. Davion Mitchell put up 16. Khalil Ware and Haywood Highsmith both put up 12 each. So great balanced scoring there. And then for the Hawks, um it was Trey and Okongwu who were trying to put the team on their backs. And George Niang did great too. Trey put up 29. Kongwu put up 28. Niang put up 20. Karis LeVert had a good game too. He put up 15, but that was not enough. Hawks did not show up in the overtime, unfortunately. And the Heat, with yet another impressive game, found a way. Originally the 10th seed, they end up clinching the 8th seed thanks to winning 2 play-in games. And so here comes another controversy on the play-in tournament. Like, the supposed 8th seed not making it, and somehow the supposed 10 seed gets in. I don't know how I feel about that. I think it's
Yeah,
somewhat bullshit.
it
But then again, like, to them for winning the games that matter. But like, yeah, I think this is where controversy definitely comes.
it's
Shout
definitely
out to the Heat for
a bad look seeing the 8th
it
seed
is.
being a having a 37-45 record. Uh, I believe they're only 3 games back of the Hawks, so it's
I
not like
think
a
so.
crazy
Like,
difference, but still, the 37-45 record for the 8th seed when you really shouldn't be there is crazy. But they did win
yeah,
those 2 games.
definitely.
They did what they needed to
I
do.
think
Shout out to Spolstra. A shout out to the Heat. I think they're still undefeated in the play-in. Um, and yeah, they're the first 10 seed to ever uh make it out of the play-in. And I will say in the overtime part of the game, it was really Davion Mitchell coming through. looking like Donovan Mitchell out there, with
Yeah, I
uh,
was gonna say that's
hit
funny.
hitting clutch shots. There was a play where he missed a three after Trey kind of just let him shoot it, and he grabbed his own rebound, went to the 3 point line, and shot it and made it. Like he was doing all the small things in order to win the game, and it was really him pulling through when the Heat needed a player to step up the most. So shout out to Mitchell, shout out to Spoelstra again for leading this ragtag of uh, boys into the playoffs when they really shouldn't be. They really shouldn't be. This is again very weird. A 37 win team is going to the playoffs. That's crazy. That's honestly insane.
Yeah, that is definitely insanity. First 10 seed to make the playoffs. 37 wins to make the playoffs. All along, cool but crazy narratives there. I will say this. You did mention how I think the record was only like 3 game difference between Heat and the Hawks. Still crazy, but I guess record wise not as crazy. I think it definitely would have been a lot more crazy if somehow, some way the Mavs would have beaten the Grizzlies because their record was very drastic. I think the Grizzlies won but like 11 more games or some shit like that. So that would have been very embarrassing. Um, I don't know if what exactly was the biggest difference in between like a team that made the playoffs and didn't due to the play-in, but I do remember in 2022 the Pelicans made it over the Clippers won 6 more games than the Pelicans, but the Pelicans made it because they beat the Clippers in the play-in. I remember that was hilarious. Um, but yeah, honestly, like it definitely stirs a lot of controversy. It kind of makes it look like as if like your regular season doesn't even mean for shit because you have to win 2 more games to get at least 1 more game to get in or two. And it's unfortunate, but I guess in those games and you don't have to deal with it. So definitely a lot of mixed reactions there for sure.
I definitely feel bad for Trey Young suffering over there in Atlanta with basically no hope. I am very curious
Yeah.
on what his future is gonna be after another disappointing season. Is gonna ask for a trade? I don't know. I guess we'll wait and see this off season. But yeah, very disappointing way to end the season.
Definitely. And also, I was gonna say like what would be really funny is imagine if they got rid of the play-in tournament, but then like in the history books, like many decades down the road, some person in like 2050 randomly looks back at the NBA standings from 2024, 2025, and they're like, wait, why did the Heat finish with a higher seed than the Hawks when they had a worse record? Like that would be really hilarious to think about.
We're gonna have to show our
Yeah.
grandkids this podcast episode so they could truly understand.
Yeah, we would definitely have to do that. Man, that would be a hilarious story for another day for sure. Anyhow, it is good that we were able to finally have a good playing game there. But unfortunately, I think it's safe to say most of the playing tournament was a snooze fest. Anyways, hopefully the playoffs will be better. And so I think on that note, we could probably move on to our playoff predictions. And that being, I think we can start with the Western Conference. Maybe the 1 versus 8 seed, OKC versus Memphis. Um, Team personally, I don't really see this being a very competitive series. And that being like OKC is just such a way better team than the Grizzlies, like a team that barely even made it. Um, I think it easily could be a 4-0 sweep, but I wouldn't be shocked if the Grizzlies took 1 game. And if they do take 1 game, it would probably be game 3 or game 4 at home. And that's if they're lucky. So kind of tricky. I don't know if I would pick the sweep or 5 games. Honestly, I'm just gonna say sweep, honestly. I think OKC should have no problems against the Grizzlies. But I wouldn't be shocked if the Grizzlies won one.
I would give
I
the
mean,
Grizzlies one.
last year, last year, I thought that the Pelicans would win one game against the Thunder, and they ended up getting swept. So I guess I'm a trust the Thunder to do it again.
I'm pretty sure it was
But
a competitive sweep, though. I think those games were competitive. It's just the Thunder ended
I
up
think a lot of them,
uh,
I
winning
think
them
most of
at
them
the
were
end.
competitive.
Yeah, I,
Yeah,
I'm gonna give the Grizzlies one. I believe their roster is talented enough to get one win. But it's gonna be hard. You know, there's so many great perimeter defenders on the Thunder. Like Ja is gonna have a lot of trouble scoring. Desmond Bain will probably have some trouble scoring. Um, yeah, it's not gonna be pretty. For sure. And a crazy stat that I found out: the Thunder have beaten the Grizzlies 9 games in a row. That's a long ass streak. The last time the Grizzlies beat the Thunder was on December 7th, 2022. So I think your Thunder in
keep
4
winning them.
is definitely a safer pick, but it's hard to win 4 games in a row. The Grizzlies are still a talented team. They're not that far behind the second seed in the West, Uh, but, there's a huge difference between the Rockets and the Thunder. So the Thunder are going to be dominant. This isn't going to be a super competitive series, as he said. I think Ja and Bane are going to have a lot of trouble. I don't really believe in Triple J like others do. But I do think they're talented enough to get one win. So I'm saying Grizzlies in 5.
You meant Thunder in 5, right?
Thunder in 5. Damn, I messed it
Grizzlies
up
in
there.
5. Oh, good. I knew what you meant. But yeah, honestly, I think without to say the least, it should be a no sweat series win for the Thunder,
Oh
whether
yeah,
4 or 5.
one more thing I wanted to add. We need to look out for J-Dub on this game because last year J-Dub didn't have the best series in the playoffs. He really struggled, and Shea had to kind of carry the OKC last year. And I'm sure Shea is going to do phenomenal against the Grizzlies. I do want to see if J-Dub will pick up the slack this year. I think this would be a good practice series, I guess. I think uh, J-Dub should take advantage of this matchup and, you know, really prove that he is the second guy on the Thunder. So J-Dub is definitely someone to look out for. So pay attention to him.
Definitely agree on J-Dub being one of the X Factor players. But I would say we probably had a pretty good overview on that series. Shall we go on to the next matchup, being the 2 vs 7 between Houston Rockets and Golden State Warriors?
Yeah, this one's going to be a good one. I'm excited for this matchup.
Definitely. So to start, great matchup. Old rivals meet again. Um, and obviously all of those matchups came when the years when Steph, KD, Clay, Draymond, and company went up against James Harden and those Houston Rockets. And it was a pretty one-sided rivalry. Warriors were 4-0 in those playoff matchups. So now the question is, can the Rockets flip the switch now in a new era? Um, Mentioned that the Warriors won the regular season series against the Rockets this year 3-2, and the extra game coming because of the in-season tournament, which Houston won that one. So I believe, yeah. So 3 of these games were played before the trade deadline. 2 of these games were played after the trade deadline. After the trade deadline, the Warriors won one and the Rockets won one. And the game that the Rockets won did happen to be the game when Steph only put up 2 points or 3 points, whichever. I think it was 3 points. Yeah, 3 points, and they won by 10. I think that. Oh, here's another thing. All of the games played were very close. I believe that 10-point win was actually the largest margin. So that says a lot there. Um, that being said, I kind of struggled a little bit picking the winner for this series because I think it could go either way. Um, like the thing is, like, I went back and forth a lot because if you would have asked me this, like maybe last week or the week before, I probably would say Warriors without a doubt. I will admit, like, after seeing the Warriors play, like, within the last week or two, I feel like they just haven't been looking as good as we initially thought, in my opinion, at least. I mean, they've been looking like a lot more beatable, losing to teams like well, first off, they lost against the Rockets when Steph only put up 2 points, was 3 points, which is a little bit of a fluke probably, but didn't necessarily look good that game. And then, of course, they lost against the Spurs on the Harrison Barnes game winner. That was a bad game there. Losing against the Clippers was not no shame or nothing, but that was just another game where they showed weakness. And then against the Grizzlies, like honestly, they could have easily blown out Memphis in my opinion, but that game ended up going down to the wire. So point blank, I just think the Warriors haven't looked as good as we initially thought lately. That being said, I think this series can go either way, but I think I'm just gonna go with Rockets winning in 7, game 7 at home. But I wouldn't be shocked if the Warriors won in 6, for example.
Yeah, I'm surprising you are going with the Rockets, especially since we've been kind of slandering the Rockets, saying that they're gonna be the easy matchup. You're probably gonna want to face the Rockets in the playoffs. Um, but I will say I think it will be a longer series, longer than I originally anticipated. I similar to you, I kind of at first thought the Warriors would handedly beat the Rockets, but the more I thought about it, the more I believe in the Rockets defense. That's how they won the in season tournament game. There was insane defense, several 24 second violations. The game ended with a clutch block. So there's going to be a lot of defense played for sure. Unfortunately for the Rockets, though, they don't really have that guy. They don't have a closer. The Warriors have two. They have Steph, and now they have Jimmy Butler, who could be playoff Jimmy once again. Uh, it's hard to count that out. So that's scary for the Rockets. I'm sure the defense are gonna be amazing. I think a big reason why Steph only scored like 2 or 3 points the other day is because of the insane Rockets defense. Amin Thompson is gonna hopefully have a legacy series up and really blow up and prove to the nation that he is here to stay. He is a young star, and he's gonna hopefully prove that he is going to be a future All Star in the series. We'll see though. We'll see. Offensively though, I am afraid for the Rockets. Alperen Sengun is definitely an X factor. I know Draymond Green in previous games had to try to get into Sengun's head, and Sengun didn't let it. There was this cool play where Draymond was really barking at Sengun, and then Sengun immediately dunks on a Warrior player right after. But will he be able to ignore those Draymond Green barks for a 7 game series? I don't know. So he's definitely a player to look out for. And I guess also to look out for Dylan Brooks and Draymond Green. See which one gets a tech first. That'll be fun to watch. And I do like their rivalry. I personally am Team Brooks, as I'm a Draymond Green hater, but I would understand if someone's not Team Brooks, because he is also very annoying. But yeah, at the end of the day, I think Warriors just have the superstars that are gonna carry them to the win. So I'm gonna say Warriors in 6, mostly because they have two amazing playoff players, two amazing playoff closers that have been to the finals before, that have proved it. At least Steph. Jimmy hasn't proved it, but he's carried shitty teams to the finals. So in a way, he's proved that he is a winner. The Rockets are still young. This is the first season where they're actually good, and you don't really expect the Rockets to have a finals run. This is just a good practice, I guess, for hopefully next season they'll actually make a run. But yeah, I guess we got different views. I have Warriors in 6. You have Rockets in 7. We'll see who ends up being right.
Yes, sir. We will see indeed. Um, we'll say definitely gonna be interesting for sure. And obviously, as mentioned, the Draymond versus Dylan is gonna be very fun and entertaining to watch for sure. Not a fan of either of them, but in this series, I'll be Team Brooks just because I prefer the Rockets to win.
All right, let's go.
That's the only reason.
Let's go.
But yeah, um, I think we can move on to the next series, which is arguably maybe the best series. That being our Lakers versus the Timberwolves, 3 versus 6.
Can I start off by saying
And
something?
go for it.
Rudy Gobert, Teddy Bear. I ain't scared. Lakers in 5. I'm going with the Lakers. I think the Lakers are going to take it in 5 games. Yes, I'm kind of doing this for the bit. But there's a lot of good reasons why I believe the Lakers are going to take over. First being that we got Luka now. And Luka torched the Timberwolves last year. Absolutely dismantled the Timberwolves. Getting Rudy Gobert on switches and just cooking him. The Timberwolves really didn't have a good answer for Luka when he was injured last year. Luka is looking like prime Luka at this moment. Like, Luka is finally looking amazing for the Lakers. Right on time for the playoffs. There's no way the Timberwolves are going to stop him. Even though they have great defenders like Ant and what's his name? Who's their small forward?
Oh, you talking about Nikhil Alexander Walker?
There we go. Like,
Or
he's a great defender. There's someone else, isn't there? Who else were you gonna say?
I'm pretty sure there is someone else. I'm kind of blanking
I'm
at the
blanking
moment. I don't
too.
know why.
I'm blanking too, but they have good defenders. But it's not just Luka on the Lakers. They have LeBron James. They have the best third option in the league, Austin Reeves. The Timberwolves can't stop them all. They're not going to be able to slow all three of them. And let's not forget that Rui Hachimura can pop off for a game or two. So that's just another offensive powerhouse that they need to look out for. And speaking of offense, there's really not much offense on the Timberwolves side besides Ant. They lost their second best offensive player in the last offseason, trading him for Randall, a notable playoff choker whose percentages always goes down in the playoffs. So he really needs to step it up if the Timberwolves want a chance to beating the Lakers in this series. And I think the biggest way they can do that is on the rebounding department. The Lakers don't have a center. They have a guard that rebounds very well with Luka. They have LeBron that rebounds pretty well. But they don't have a center, so I'm sure Randall and Gobert could take advantage of that. That's probably where the Timberwolves might want to go. Try to go for offensive rebounds and stuff like that in order to win the games, but I don't think it's enough. I think Luka's gonna take over like he does in every playoff series. It's hard to count out LeBron, It's not often that he gets bounced in the first round either. Yeah. Um, I don't know. I might be forgetting something, but honestly, Lakers at 5. That's what I'm going with. What about you?
Yeah, honestly, I agree with most of the things you said. I think that it's gonna be for sure must see TV. Um, we got Luca, Braun, and I mean, you can mention Gobert if you want, but he's not must see TV. um, anyways, it's gonna be a very fun series for sure. Um, and for me, like, I will say this: I think that it's not gonna necessarily be an easy series, but the Lakers for sure should be able to take it. And part of me is a little bit torn because, like, kind of sad that the Wolves may be out going out early because I do like their team. Honestly, I love Ant, and I think it would have been cool if we could have met them later in the playoffs, so that way they go on a run, we go on a run, and then we play later. But unfortunately, one of these two teams will be going home early, and I think the Lakers got this. Honestly, I think I was definitely contemplating a little bit between 5 or 6. Um, kind of was leaning towards 5. I'm just gonna go ahead and say 6 in terms of like I say Grizz. I mean I say the Timberwolves find a way to take a few. I would say I think if it goes 6, probably what's gonna happen is split one each in LA, split one each in Minnesota. Then the Lakers are gonna win Game 5 at home, and then they're gonna take Game 6 on the road. That would be the most realistic route for 6. But if it was 5, I think the realistic route would be Timberwolves win Game 3 at home, and then the Lakers win all the other games. I could definitely see that happening. Knowing that the Lakers, granted, maybe it was a little bit different the previous 2023 run because the Lakers had to play on the road every series. Dating back to the bubble, they've tended to kind of like use game one or as like a test out game. That's why like I wouldn't be shocked if we lost one of the home games per se. And I I think it can go 5 or 6, but I'm just go ahead and say Lakers win in 6, which will definitely be satisfied as long as they win the series in general. So I definitely look forward to this one for sure.
Yeah, that honestly makes a lot of sense. You're right. The Lakers tend to lose the first game. LeBron tends to lose the first game several times and end up destroying and winning the series. So if they ended up winning in 6, it makes sense. Uh, I'm saying Lakers in 5, partially because of the bit, but also because I do believe in this team. And we got great perimeter defenders that will be able to slow down Ant. And if he slowed down, who's going to be the second option? It should be Randall. I'm sure he'll have a game where he proves the haters wrong, but historically, it's been rough for him in the playoffs. So I guess we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, you got Lakers at 6. I got Lakers in 5.
Yes, sir. Nonetheless, we both got the same winner, so that is good.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, I think we can move on to the final first round matchup in the Western Conference, being the 4 versus 5 matchup between the Nuggets and the Clippers, which is a rematch of that vintage 2020 Clippers collapse in the bubble when they choked the 3-1 lead. Man, good times. I will say this looking into this series, um, Clippers easily have been looking like the better team lately. And one being like since the All-Star break, the Clippers have been one of the hottest teams in the league. They've been playing really well. Nuggets, not necessarily. They've been kind of going through a little bit of like turmoil in terms of like struggling fired Mike Malone, and kind of just taking a bit of a step back from last season. That being said, though, I just still do not know if I can trust the Clippers because here's why, okay? So, first off, James Harden, without a secret, is a notorious playoff choker. He'll have like a few good games, and then he'll follow up with an absolute horrible game. That type of inconsistency is definitely very concerning. Another thing is the fact that Kawhi gets hurt in the playoffs a lot recently. Dating back to 2021. 2021, they made it out of the first round against the Mavs, and then Kawhi got hurt in the second round against the Jazz. And then came 2023 when they played against the Suns in the first round, and Kawhi got hurt, I believe, in game two of that series. And then last year against the Mavs, Kawhi got hurt again. Now, I'm not saying that I want the guy to get hurt, but history just doesn't really seem to be on his side lately in terms of staying healthy in the playoffs. And if that continues, that's a major concern for sure. Nonetheless, though, I think it's going to be a good series. The Nuggets do have home court. Uh, and as mentioned, Clippers have been looking like the better team lately, and they should win the series. I just don't know if I trust them. So, due to the fact that the Nuggets have the home court advantage, I'm going to go ahead and say Nuggets win in 7, just like what happened in the bubble. Now, I don't know if I expect another 3-1 collapse type fashion. I would love that, but I think it's going to be like a more back and forth 7-game series, in my opinion. Now, if assuming that the Clippers somehow, some way have no internal issues with Kawhi injuries, or Harden miraculously just performs every game, and easily Clippers win. But because I do not trust all that happening, I'm gonna go with the Nuggets winning in 7.
All right. I do think this is gonna be a longer series, but I am going with the Clippers here, which is tough to say as a Lakers fan, but I am going with the Clippers. As you mentioned, they are on fire. They've been like the best team, to end off the season, and their lineup is insane. Like I am definitely assuming that they're going to be healthy this playoff run, which is a risky move. Like, this is a very big gamble. But I'm assuming that Kawhi is going to be playing. I'm assuming that Norman Powell is going to be playing. And, if they're playing, and James Harden is there, Chris Dunn, Zubats, Derrick Jones Jr. This is a deep team. This is a very well-rounded team. They got great defenders with Derrick Jones Jr., Chris Dunn, that will be able to slow down Murray. And when Murray gets flustered, he really struggles. That's partially why the Nuggets lost last year against the Timberwolves, with the Timberwolves defenders constantly doubling Murray and Murray getting very frustrated. Also, speaking of Jamal Murray, like, which Jamal Murray are we going to see? Are we going to see, like, bubble Jamal Murray? Are we going to see the Jamal Murray that helped win a championship for the Nuggets? Or are we going to see the Jamal Murray we saw last year, who was playing pretty shitty? Not only for the Nuggets, but also for Team Canada, if you guys remember the Olympics last year. Are we going to be getting that? Are we getting Jamal Murray in general? He might get injured as well. He's very injury prone. Not as bad as Kawhi, but it happens to him often. So he is definitely a question mark. I know you mentioned the question marks for the Clippers with James Harden. Is he gonna come through? Is Kawhi actually gonna play? But there's a lot of question marks for the Nuggets. Jamal Murray being the biggest question mark. And to me, another question mark, Michael Porter Jr., is he going to come through? Because they're going to need him. They're going to need him to shoot and make those threes. If he can't make those threes, the Nuggets cannot win. The Jokic thrives when his team thrives. And if team doesn't thrive, he could score a 60-point triple double like he did earlier this year and still lose. Um, so yeah, the Nuggets might have the best player in the world, but the team is just very lackluster compared to the Clippers. Um, and I really don't believe that it's enough to beat the Clippers. As much as I don't want to admit that, I think if Kawhi's healthy, he's gonna be unstoppable. Nobody's gonna be able to stop him, and I'm sure Harden's gonna have a couple of bad games, but he tends to have a couple of good games as well. And they don't need him to have a good game in every game because if he has a bad game, Norman Powell could come through and score like 25, or Zubats could give you 20 and 10 in any given night. Zubats as well. I didn't even really mention him, but him defensively is a great matchup against Jokic. They usually play well, or he usually plays well against Jokic. He's definitely no Jokic stopper, but he could hold his own against Jokic. So this is a tough matchup for the Nuggets, and as much as I would rather have them win, the Clippers just have a better lineup and a way better coach. If someone's struggling, Ty Lue is gonna find someone to help out and find a way to win the game. So that's why I'm going Clippers in 6.
Okay, fair enough. Honestly, a lot of good points, and as mentioned, like barring any disappointments, the Clippers should be the better team. Just a matter of, I guess, do I trust them is all.
Which
But
is very granted.
hopefully, yeah, hopefully the Nuggets find a way to win.
Mm-hmm. I guess we can move on to the East.
Yeah, I think we're good to move on to the East now. Starting with 1 versus 8, Cavs versus the Heat. Obviously, a very unexpected matchup to say the least, because first off, the Heat was the 10th seed. Them being the first 10 seed to get in was very shocking, and the fact that they were able to make that happen might be for not much, but still shout at them for making it happen. Anyways, I still think it's gonna be an easy win for the Cavs. I feel like the Hawks probably would have given the Cavs more problems, honestly, because in the regular season they did. I mean, the Hawks beat the Cavs twice, I think. I think they were also the only team, if I'm not mistaken, I think they're also the only team to beat both the Cavs and the Celtics twice this season. Um, so that was impressive in itself. But I think it's going to be a quick series. I think I will give the Heat 1 game, but I don't really see it going past 5, honestly. So that being said, simply put, Cavs are just a much better team, and prediction, Cavs in 5.
I definitely agree with you. I have the same prediction, Cavs in 5. I would have gone with a sweep, but I just believe in Eric Spoelstra too much. It's hard to count him out. Same way that you can't really count out Ty Lue when he's coaching a team. You can't really count out Spoelstra. He'll find a way to win a game, even if he's playing a bunch of bums. But I could see Tyler Hero, going off for 40. Maybe Davon Mitchell has another great game in him. Maybe Bam Adebayo will start playing like a all-star. We'll see. But yeah, the Cavs are the favorites for a reason. They won 60 plus games and they're facing a 37 win teams. They're facing a 10th seed. So it'd be embarrassing, honestly, if they don't win the series or don't win in like 5 or 4 games. Like it should be easy.
Keyword is definitely should. And I also thought about potentially predicting a sweep as well, but I think good point you mentioned is believing in Eric Spoelstra, one of the top coaches all time, really, and definitely still a top tier coach in this league currently. I think they're capable of winning one game. Last year, they were able to win one game against the Celtics, while pretty depleted without Jimmy. I think they can do it again against the Heat, but probably no more than one game,
Yeah, tangent.
unless a massive miracle were to happen.
Quick tangent. It's still crazy that he doesn't have a Coach of the Year award. Like he doesn't have one. I
It
don't
is.
think Ty Lue has one. I really liked when Brad Stevens was the coach for the Celtics. I thought he was very good. And he never got one. For some reason, all of these like great coaches just don't have a Coach of the Year award, which I find very odd.
Yeah, it's definitely insane to say the least. Anyways, yeah, safe to say we both agree on the Cavs in five. And
Cavs and
so I
five,
think
yeah,
we can now move on to the next matchup being the 2 versus 7 Celtics versus Magic. And I can
easy.
start things off by saying, to me, Magic are a little bit of a tricky team. Mentioned time and time again how inconsistent they were this season. They would look really good some games, and then they would look really bad other games. Before Paulo and Franz got hurt, they were looking like they could potentially be like top seed in the Eastern Conference. Maybe make like a case for being maybe not a contender per se, but like at least like a dark horse team. But after Paulo and Franz got hurt and returned, they just never necessarily got back to where they were before. Um, that being said, though, they're definitely a sneaky team that could potentially. Now, I'm not saying they're gonna. I'm not saying I expect them to win the series, but like they could potentially be a sleeper to take a game or two. And so, that being said, I think Celtics should be able to win the series without a doubt. I mean, I hope I'm wrong, but the reality is they're just a better team, like clear as day. I will say this though: if the Magic can play like they did earlier in the season or play like how they do when all cylinders are clicking, I think they can steal a game. That being said, it's really hard to assess the regular season games they played because a lot of them, I think, no Jason Tatum, no Paulo, or like Franz or something. One of the games they played, I think like none of the starters for either team played, and the Magic won that one. So yeah, Magic won regular season series 2-1, but may as well put an asterisk on that one because most of those games were not full strength. That being said, I think the Celtics win this series. I'm gonna say I'm gonna be generous and saying six, but it probably should be shorter, honestly. I'm only saying that because like I wouldn't be shocked if the Magic go like red hot in like a game or two. I think they can win one in Orlando, maybe steal one in Boston. I don't know how confident I am in that, but I'm just gonna go ahead and say they find a way to win two, but Celtics win in six at the end.
Um, yeah, I do think Celtics are gonna win this series, but I'm saying it's a sweep. I think this is gonna be an easy matchup for the Celtics. Both teams great defensively. They're both top five in defensive rating. Offensively, though, it's lopsided. The Celtics are what are they? They are the second best. They have the second best offensive rating, while the Magic have the 27th. And I think a big reason why is the lack of point guard with Jalen Suggs being out. That's why a huge X factor for me is Cole Anthony and how well he's going to play. He played well in the playing game. Will he be able to do that throughout an entire series? I don't know. That's something that we're going to need to look out for. If he can't, then maybe the Celtics could win in six instead of four. But I still don't really believe that the Magic are gonna win the series. Um, And yeah, I do think the Celtics are going to be dominant, even though they're not as good as last year. They're still the reigning champs for a reason. They did well last year. They should be able to handle the Magic with ease. Um, and yeah, hopefully Franz Wagner bounced back from last year. Last year was not a good playoff series for him against the Cavs. So hopefully he can kind of prove to the world this time that he is truly a future star. And then we'll see how efficient Paulo plays, because sometimes that could be a struggle. But yeah, I really don't have much else to say. I don't really believe in the Magic offense. If Franz isn't going, if Paulo's having a poor shooting night, I don't really think they could do much against the Celtics. So I'm saying a sweep here, which I don't even think I said Celtics were gonna sweep any of the teams last year, even though they were better last year. But I don't think this is a good matchup. So Celtics sweep.
Yeah, definitely. Um, Looking like it's definitely gonna be easy. Celtics win. Hopefully, a miracle happens.
Yeah, I'm not happy to
Um,
say Celtics are sweeping, but I think that's what's gonna happen.
yeah, yeah. Realistically speaking, but I think we are good to move on to the next series, and that would be 3 versus 6, Knicks versus Pistons. Classic rivalry renewed. Obviously, old school rivals back in the day. A lot of heated matchups between, um, obviously like Patrick Ewing, Isaiah Thomas, all those guys. And so now the rivalry is definitely not as intense as before, but it's still a thing. And so obviously a few things to address is how Pistons had such a crazy turnaround this year. They over tripled their win total from last year. And I think it should be a good matchup. In the regular season, the Pistons are actually able to win it 3-1. And it was a lot on their side. In this series, I think that it's definitely gonna be good. Due to the lack of experience for Pistons, though, I think the Knicks got the edge. And doing so, I predict the Knicks to win in 6.
Yeah, I have the Knicks winning this series as well. I'm saying in 7, just because they haven't really impressed me all season. They struggle against really good teams. Now, I wouldn't say the Pistons is one of those really good teams. When I say really good teams, I'm talking about like the Cavs, the Celtics. But still, have some doubts for the Knicks because of those reasons. With that said, though, it should go to the Knicks. They have just a better offense. They can count on 4 guys on the floor to get a bucket, whether it's Cat, Jalen Brunson, of course, OG, Mikal Bridges. They can score when needed. If one of them is having a bad shooting night, another guy is gonna pick up the slack. You can't really say the same for the Pistons. If Cade is not killing it every game, then the Pistons are gonna struggle, because who's gonna be the second guy for the Pistons?
Yeah,
I don't
I
know.
wouldn't even be able to tell you because, like, that's where all the question marks come in. It
Exactly.
could be this guy one game, it could be this guy another game. So, yeah, I don't know who I trust as a second option, honestly.
Yeah, it might be Dennis Schroeder off the bench. He's like the only guy
It
that
might
can
be.
make it score his own buckets. He can create offense. It's like him
That might
and
be
Cade.
Dennis. It might be Dennis, the playoff veteran.
Yeah, shout out to Dennis. I loved him with
Dennis,
the Lakers.
Dennis the Menace.
Dennis the
Yes, sir.
Menace. Um.
Shout out to good man. Anyways, yeah, I think it would be a fun matchup,
Oh yeah. Uh.
but safe to say we agree on the winner. Though I will say this, I know that a lot of people were hoping we could have gotten a Pistons versus Pacers matchup. That would have been another old school rivalry. Really, they are still rivals because same division, even though like in NBA, maybe you don't necessarily look at divisions as seriously as like some other sports because it just doesn't tend to be as heated division rivalries. But yeah, that definitely would have been interesting. Obviously, Malice had the Palace, all that stuff. Um, I think this one will still be a good one. Yeah, I did see. I think there were people saying like they would have preferred if we could have had Pistons versus Pacers and Knicks versus Bucks instead of what we ended up getting.
I'm
But
honestly
what we did end up
excited
getting,
for both of these series, though.
I think both of them will be good for sure, though. So yeah, I say NBA at is some decent matchup still.
Yeah,
Anyways,
it's kind of funny when you mentioned Malice in the Palace and all of that because when you were talking about like the first people that came in mind for like Pacers and Pistons was Isaiah Stewart and James Johnson. Imagine those two going at it. That would be crazy. Uh, but
that'd
yeah,
be
I do
hilarious.
think the Knicks and the Pistons are gonna be another like physical matchup. Like this is another matchup where it's hard to predict who's gonna get the first tech because you know there it's gonna happen. It's gonna be a very physical matchup for sure. But yeah, we could move on to the last series we're gonna predict. We finally made it. Pacers versus Bucks. Hoops. Who are you going with?
So I will say this: we got the rematch from last year. Unfortunately, last year just wasn't really what we deserved. And what I mean is the sense that obviously Giannis was not healthy. Um, Aim was out a few games too, I believe. And then we were able to see other guys step up, like Chris Middleton, for example. But it was just one healthy team against one banged up team, so it wasn't necessarily what we deserved to get. This year, though, not necessarily fully healthy. I mean, obviously, Dame is still recovering from his blood clots injury, but good news is I heard that he has been having a much quicker recovery for his condition than we have ever seen before. So hopefully, if he is able to be cleared, maybe he can play at least part of the series. We'll see. But definitely wish him the best there and hope he'll be good to go. And the good news is Giannis will be available for this series. Knock on wood that he doesn't get hurt again. And we'll say this: if everyone is healthy, this will be one hell of a series. It should easily be better than last year's. I'm definitely struggling a little bit to pick a winner though. Because here's the thing. I feel like on paper the Bucks should be a more talented team than the Pacers. But the inconsistency that Milwaukee had this season just makes me have trouble trusting them. Versus like the Pacers have just been a lot more of a consistent team this year. I'll definitely be rooting for the Bucks because love Giannis. Aim deserves to go further. All that. But I think the Pacers might get them again. Last year they got them in 6 games or 5 games. I think it might have been 5 games, right? Something like that. Um, I think it probably goes 6 this year. Um, Definitely not super confident in this pick because I think it can go either way. But my gut says Pacers win in 6.
Yeah, I'm going the opposite direction. I'm going with the Bucks. Even though, like weeks ago, I've even talked about how I believe more in the Pacers than I do the Bucks. A part of me still does. That's why I'm going to 7. But it's hard to root against or bet against Giannis. You know, he is definitely going to be the best player on the court, and with the good news that Dame will be back, not for the first game, but hopefully for the series he will be back. Um, there's hope. There's hope over there in Milwaukee. Is do they have enough to beat the Pacers in their very fast-paced offense? Can those old guys catch up? Can Brooke Lopez run down the court fast enough? I don't know. I don't know. I honestly might be stupid going with the Bucks in 7, but I'm going with it. I'm going with Bucks in 7 solely because I believe in Giannis that much. He is an MVP caliber player every year for a reason. He could do it on both ends. The Pacers don't have anybody to slow him down. Um, Unfortunately for the Bucks, they don't really have much of anybody to help, unless Damian Lillard does come back really really soon. But I understand why you go Pacers at 6. That's probably the logical pick, the pick you made in the brain. But I'm going with the pick in the heart. I'm going with Giannis and the Bucks in 7.
And honestly, I'm not mad at it. I honestly do hope that you are right, honestly, because I am rooting for Milwaukee. And I want to see Giannis succeed again. I mean, these last two playoffs were rough for Giannis and the Bucks. Obviously, different things happening. 2 years ago was just a team didn't show up. They ran into playoff Jimmy. Last year was Giannis got hurt, and Dame was also not 100%. This year, hopefully, third year is the charm. We will see. Anyways, as mentioned, I think this series can go either way. Um, I would actually prefer if your prediction was right, honestly.
Yeah, but I guess
As
that
a fan,
yeah, same for sure. It's definitely going to be a fun series to watch, and probably gonna be a longer one. But yeah, with all that
for sure.
said, that is all of our predictions. It's pretty interesting how there were a few of these predictions we did have some pretty big differences. We have, let's see, one, two, three matchups where we had different winners. So it'll be interesting to see who ends up getting the most predictions correct. But for the most part, we're basically on the same wavelength. We have many of the teams, similar teams winning. Some of them even like the exact same amount of games. So um, it's pretty cool. Pretty cool to see our predictions here.
Definitely. And yeah, I think contrary contrary to for example NBA awards video and like those type of stuff where we had a lot more agreeances, this is one of those episodes that we had more a little bit more of different viewpoints. And I would say if anything, it makes our selection more interesting because like agreeing is good and all, but having some differences is what makes the topic also more interesting for like context views sake. So
Yeah.
yeah, definitely cool to have a little bit of differences every now and then. And nonetheless, we look forward to watching the playoffs. It's hopefully this year's playoffs will be better than last year's playoffs because
Yep.
honestly, last year's playoffs was a little bit disappointing to say the least.
Very disappointing with
Aside
those
from
results.
Yeah, I mean, aside from the fact that the Celtics won the championship, I feel like they just weren't as good as some previous years.
Yeah, so hopefully things are better starting, I guess, for us tomorrow. You know, this episode will be out on
Yes,
Monday,
sir.
so it'll be a little dated, but it's fine. I can't wait to watch game one tomorrow. I'm pretty sure I'll be free
Man,
to watch it with you, so
I'm
it'll be fun.
I'm hyped for that. I'm definitely hyped for that for sure, man. Always a good time, first off, whenever we get together watching Lakers game. But the fact that it's going to be a playoffs game, even more exciting for sure.
At home too, as if we're gonna be there, but it's still that it's good for us Lakers fans.
Yes, sir. It's been a while since we have had home court advantage in the series
Yeah.
because we had always been the underdog team for a long time. Which honestly, I do like being an underdog, but it is nice to have the home court advantage too.
Yeah, it was cool being the underdog like 2 years ago, but now
It
we're
was.
kind of the top dogs now in a way, so that's good.
Dogs indeed.
But
Yes,
yeah,
sir.
hopefully game one goes well. Anything you want to say before we head out?
Yeah, I just want to say, per usual, thank you to all the viewers for the constant support for our channel. We greatly appreciate it. We would not be where we are today without you guys. If you guys like our content, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, share. Stay tuned for our content because we got some bangers coming up you do not want to miss. Playoff time obviously is here, so you guys also want to make sure to be on the topic and catching all those games if possible. If not, we got you guys covered with our recaps and overviews and predictions. So, yeah, definitely make sure you guys stay tuned and look forward to what's to come.
Yeah. Again, just check out our socials. I'll probably be making more TikToks, um, just going over some of the games or whatever throughout the week. So look out for that. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Leave a like, comment as well. If you're on audio platforms, leave us 5-star rating and review. That'll help us out a lot. But I think we are done here. So thank you guys for watching. We'll see you all next week. Goodbye.